Good morning, children. How are you today? Doing fine? Did you enjoy the first chapter of The Little Prince? Yes? Good. Are you ready to move on? But before we tackle chapter number 2, let me just remind you of the book cover. This is a portrait of the Little Prince drawn by the author 6 years after their first encounter. Remember, the author's name is Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. He was a Frenchman, remember? We met the author as a child. That's him, Antoine, as a child. Remember, he was fond of drawing, but adults never understood what his pictures depicted. So he was discouraged to go on painting. We also made the acquaintance of a boa constrictor. Here see him digesting a live rabbit. So scary. Today, hopefully, we will make the acquaintance of the protagonist. The protagonist of a story is the most important character. In this story, it's the Little Prince. We will also befriend a sheep. Yes, a sheep. Remember, characters may be people or animals. I would also like to recap quickly what happened in chapter number 1, just in case you've forgotten. When the narrator was 6, he read in a book that boa constrictors swallow their prey whole. The spit of information tickled his fancy, and he drew the first of his drawings. When he showed his drawing to adults, they thought it was a hat. This really disappointed the narrator. So, to clarify matters for them, the narrator drew the second drawing, the inside of the boa constrictor that had swallowed an elephant. But the adults advised the narrator to give up drawing altogether. The narrator goes on to grow up and become a pilot. Whenever he meets another adult he thinks he might connect with, he shows him or her his old drawing. Sadly, everyone he meets thinks it's a hat. No one passes his friendship test. Bear in mind this friendship test, because sooner than not, somebody will be given this test. Let's see. Well, the setting is the place where a story takes place. In this novel, the setting is the Sahara Desert. Could it have been Egypt? Maybe, but we don't know because the author doesn't say. Chapter 2. So I lived my life alone, without anyone that I could really talk to, until I had an accident with my plane in the desert of Sahara 6 years ago. Something was broken in my engine, and as I had with me neither mechanic nor any passengers, I set myself to attempt the difficult repairs all alone. It was a question of life or death for me. I had scarcely enough drinking water to last a week. The first night, then, I went to sleep on the sand, 1,000 miles from any human habitation. I was more isolated than a shipwrecked sailor on a raft in the middle of the ocean. The situation is not looking good, is it? And that's a plane flying over the desert before crashing. Thus, you can imagine my amazement at sunrise when I was awakened by an odd little voice. It said, "If you please, draw me a sheep." What? Draw me a sheep? I jumped to my feet, completely thunderstruck. I blinked my eyes hard. I looked carefully all around me, and I saw a most extraordinary small person who stood there examining me with great seriousness. Here you may see the best portrait that later I was able to make of him. But my drawing is certainly very much less charming than its model. And that's the portrait. I think it's lovely and charming. And that's the pilot and the little prince meeting. And can you see the plane? It's crashed. The propeller is buried in the sand. That, however, is not my fault. The grown-ups discouraged me in my painter's career when I was 6 years old, and I never learned to draw anything except boas from the outside and boas from the inside. Now I stared at this sudden apparition with my eyes fairly starting out of my head in astonishment. Remember, I had crashed in the desert 1,000 miles from an inhabited region. And yet my little man seemed neither to be straying uncertainly among the sands, nor to be fainting from fatigue, or hunger, or thirst, or fear. Nothing about him gave any suggestion of a child lost in the middle of the desert, 1,000 miles from any human habitation. So you see, the little prince looks perfectly at ease in the heat of the desert, although he's stranded. He's very brave. That's him looming in the distance. When at last I was able to speak, I said to him, "But what are you doing here?" And in answer he repeated, very slowly, as if he were speaking of a matter of great consequence, "If you please, draw me a sheep." When a mystery is so overpowering, one dare not disobey. You see, the little prince, like all children, never lets go when he wants something. Does he remind you of anyone in particular? Maybe you? Absurd as it might seem to me, 1,000 miles from any human habitation, and in danger of death, I took out of my pocket a sheet of paper and my fountain pen. But then I remembered how my studies had been concentrated on geography, history, arithmetic, and grammar, and I told the little chap, a little crossly too, that I did not know how to draw. He answered me, "That doesn't matter, draw me a sheep." So you see, he doesn't let go. But I had never drawn a sheep, so I drew for him one of the two pictures I had drawn so often. It was that of the boa constrictor from the outside. And I was astounded to hear the little fellow greeted with, "No, no, no, I do not want an elephant inside a boa constrictor. A boa constrictor is a very dangerous creature, and an elephant is very cumbersome. Where I live, everything is very small. What I need is a sheep. Draw me a sheep." So then I did the drawing. Do you see? The little prince has just passed the friendship test. He guessed immediately that the picture didn't depict a hat, but an elephant inside a boa constrictor. He's very smart. So that's the first drawing of a sheep by the author, And that's the little prince observing the drawing. He looked at it carefully. Then he said, "No, the sheep is already very sickly. Do me another." So I did another drawing. And that's drawing number 2. But can you spot a difference? My friend smiled gently and indulgently. "You see yourself," he said, "that this is not a sheep. This is a ram. It has horns." So then I did my drawing over once more. And that's the third drawing. The sheep looks a bit unstable. But it was rejected too, just like the others. This one is too old. I want a sheep that will live a long time. By this time my patience was exhausted, because I was in a hurry to start taking my engine apart. Remember? The plane had crashed, so I tossed off this drawing. And this is drawing number 4. Hang on a minute. Does it look like a sheep or like a box? It looks like a box to me. And I threw out an explanation with it. This is only his box. The sheep you asked for is inside. Oh, that's the sheep inside the box. And the little prince observing the drawing. Will it be convinced now? I was very surprised to see a light break over the face of my young judge. That is exactly the way I wanted it. Do you think that the sheep will have to have a great deal of grass? Why? Because where I live, everything is very small. There will surely be enough grass for him, I said. It is a very small sheep that I have given you. He bent his head over the drawing. Not so small that, look, he has gone to sleep. And that is how I made the acquaintance of the little prince. So, have you liked chapter number 2? Yes? Okay, let's move on to phonics. Now, it means sounds. Do you remember? I told you about phonograms. A phonogram is a picture of a sound. So, in this chapter, in chapter number 2, we've come across phonogram CH. CH makes 3 sounds. Ch, k, and sh. The highlighted words in blue are words contained in the chapter, so please go over them again. CH says ch as in chap, child, charming, much. CH says k as in mechanic. CH also says sh as in chef and machine. I know what you're thinking. These 2 words, chef and machine, which are not in the chapter, don't look English, do they? Exactly, you're right. They look French because they are French. You see, if English were a person, we would describe him or her as a very kind and accommodating person. Why? Because English welcomes any word coming from any language, any useful words, of course. So, chef and machine are actually French words, and in English we don't change the spelling, and we don't even change the pronunciation. We try and pronounce them as French people do. Chef, machine. So you see, CH doesn't make one sound. It makes 3 sounds. And that's a picture of Mr. Bean being a plain mechanic. Mechanic. You see, CH? Okay. Let's move on to phonogram number 2. EA. EA makes 3 sounds. E, and A. EA says E as in really, speak, repeated, please, creature, deal. EA says A as in death, had, already. EA also says A as in great and break. All of these highlighted words are in the chapter. Go over them. Okay, let me just introduce a note for you. We will talk about this later on as we read on, but for now I just want to mention that in unstressed syllables, EA makes the schwa sound, as in ocean. Now, wait a minute. What is the schwa sound? The schwa sound, can you see it here? We represent it as an upended E. Yes, it looks upside down. It's not a letter. The schwa sound is a sound. In fact, you see, I've put it in dashes, between dashes, because it's not a letter. But believe me, it's the most important, the most frequent sound in the English language. The schwa sound is half a sound. It may sound as short I or short U. It may sound as I or Where? Well, in any part of a word that we call syllable, which doesn't carry the stress, which is unstressed. Ocean, ocean. Do you see, in this word, the stress is on the first syllable. Ocean. We don't say ocean, we say ocean. So the second part, or the second syllable, is not stressed, is pronounced very quickly. And whenever a vowel sound, any vowel sound, not just EA, is pronounced very quickly, it is a schwa. We will be talking again about this over and over again, but bear it in mind for now, okay? And that's a picture of ocean creatures. Now, the last phonogram for today is OU. You see, again, all of these highlighted words are in the chapter. There's only one word which is not in the chapter, and that's poetry. OU makes 5 sounds. Yes, 5 sounds. Did you know that? Ow, oo, o, and OU says ow as in without, thousand, out, outside, about, around, fountain pen, astounded. OU says ooh as in you. OU also says O as in poultry, chicken. OU says as in could. OU says as in enough and young. Now OU, being a vowel sound, may also sound as a schwa, or In unstressed syllables, OU makes the schwa sound, as in dangerous, serious, and yourself. You see? In these words, the stress is on the first syllable. Dangerous, serious. Yourself. In the word discouraged, OU makes the schwa sound because of bossy R. Now wait a minute. And this word, let's say it again slowly. Discouraged. Where is the stress? On the first syllable or on the second syllable? Is it on dis? Did I say discouraged or did I say discouraged? It's on the second syllable. Discouraged. So, how come in this word OU is stressed? It shouldn't be saying the schwa sound, but it does. Why? Because of bossy R. Remember? Bossy R always changes the sound of the vowels that come before it. We will be seeing more and more of this as we move on. Okay? I think that's it for today. Thanks for listening. So long, guys. Bye-bye. Oh, I was forgetting. That's the tip of a fountain pen, an author's best friend.